If the play is valid, then they'll get 5 points for every word challenged in addition to their play score. So it definitely helps the players who are a little bit like myself sometimes have that inferior vocabulary to the other players, because we can be a little bit more confident when we challenge because we're risking a little bit less. So instead of risking a lost turn, we're just risking giving the opponent an additional 5 points per word challenge. So it theoretically also keeps the board full of more valid words and fewer phonies staying on the board, and fewer attempts at phonies by players. So it's a different style, and definitely changes a big dimension of the game. But I think depending on where you've played initially, what you're used to, that's kind of often what players get comfortable with.
Yeah, all right, so our action is underway now. Sorry to interrupt, boys, but yeah, Wolfram has drawn his first rack, and we are into the afternoon of day 2 of the Scrabble Players Championship. Thanks for that assessment, Sean. Appreciate it.
Yeah, it looks like a good start is going to be underway. Got some big tiles, maybe tricky racks here for an opening play. I don't know if I see anything immediate for Wolfram that would make things really easy. He needs to break up that duplicate I, but he also wants to unload the F probably. I wonder what he could play. I don't know if there's a good 5-letter play that he could reach the double, but maybe playing short might be good enough.
Yeah, it looks like possible options. IF is a short play to keep bingo prone leaves. ACEIT is fairly bingo prone, so we could drop that. There's a 5-letter word, fecit, or I don't know how to pronounce it, but FECIT plays for 28 points, holding AI. And then there's kind of happy medium between there is FIE or FICE. So I think those are the options he's got. Does he play fecit and grab those points? Does he play if and play very much to play for the bingo, or kind of split the difference with Phi or Fice in there? Do you have any thoughts about these plays, Morris?
Yeah, I mean, we've talked about all morning with NWL that a lot of this can be just user preference, right? Or stylistic preference, if you like to start the game off slow or start the game off fast. And so I think, from my understanding at least, Collins players, since there is more scoring opportunities, don't tend to start the game off in that slow, short playing as often as some NWL players, just because the opportunities for defense, as Sean was saying, aren't as great. So I think Fice makes a lot of sense here if you want to maybe keep at least one consonant to make sure you don't get super vowel heavy. It seems like a pretty good compromise between scoring, keeping, etc.
The other great thing about Fice is that if he draws an R, he has a wonderful extension to the triple.
Oh, Artifice, that's neat. Yeah, great job. That's super cool.
So the fact that he kept the AIT, he may have been thinking about that factor because it's not that unlikely to happen. It's something that's more than wishful thinking. It's something possible. But in this case, it didn't happen right away. But we'll see. And there are a few other extensions for Feist that will reach the triple word, so we can watch for that during this as the board has kind of taken a little right angle here, and with Ben responding with faux.
You are, for those watching at home, you're okay. Ben does always play like this with his tiles. They are in random orientations all the time. I think that's just kind of how Ben's brain works. He's kind of scatterbrained, but also utterly brilliant across the Scrabble board. So yeah, that is an upside down cue. Those A's are sideways. You're going to have to get used to that as we watch this game, because that is how he plays, and he's not going to change that up just because he's on stream.
Yeah, and hopefully for him, the option to play QAID will stay on the board, because that'll be a great way to balance his rack and unload that Q. But it's quite likely that it'll get blocked in some fashion.
Yeah, I guess on this sort of turn, so I tend to want to get rid of the second L and A and the B. I mean, Alb is a play that fits right above the X to make Axe as well. That seems natural to me immediately, but that would keep QAID. What were you thinking, Sean, to possibly scuffle up the QAID area?
I was thinking he might play Bail with the B on the triple letter score.
Gotcha.
That it could go. Yeah, I think Alb is a sound play. The only thing about Alb is that the opponent gets a first crack at taking axe and doing something more with it, and maybe outscoring the 19 points that you pick up from that. So I feel like Bale doesn't really offer much. It's not so easy to play across foe as it is right now, especially if the underlaps are taken away.
In this instance here, it looks like Bale is going to work out better just because of what Ben is sitting on. But of course, in Scrabble, you never know what your opponent's sitting on. Sometimes you can guess, you can kind of feign a guess based on what you've seen from their previous plays, if they're in general leaning more bingo prone, if they're sitting on vowels or consonants. But a play like Foe after a defensive opening like Feis, it really doesn't tell you much at all. So Wolfram has no idea of knowing what Ben is sitting on and can't expect the QA ID to come down. We'll be interested to see if he plays Alb or Alba, or if he does try to keep things a little bit tighter with a play like Bale.
He had that look on his face that I sometimes have on mine when I am just trying to make sure that I'm not missing a bonus or a bingo with the tiles I have, because these tiles are fairly bingo prone, even though there's some duplication here. That ABLE, you got to run through that to make sure they haven't missed anything. But he's definitely chosen a sound play with Bale.
And Ben is not going to be happy about this one. It takes away both his plays of QAID and that floating U for him to otherwise offload this Q. And now Ben is going to be stuck with it. He's going to have to exchange or make some other play using other letters and retaining the Q. I would be shocked if we don't see an exchange here, though, just because I do not want the Q on a board with this shape right now.
I'm not so sure. Gad or Igar might be coming down on his...
Oh, yes, I forgot about
He's taking aged, okay.
I forgot about the GU in Collins. Yeah, that's going to give Ben a lot more plays out of this rack. Yes.
Yeah, there he goes.
Yeah, that's really interesting that he chose aged over Agar or Ager. I thought if he was going to put down the E, maybe he wanted to save the D and the A to potentially work with the Q a bit if he was keeping the Q, but it looks like he's keeping only the A of those two. So I guess maybe he just likes the R a lot.
No, I think maybe the D would synergize well with the Q, but definitely you would prefer to retain an A over an E when working with the Q. QA has much better synergy than QE.
Well, this will be an interesting to see how this works out and when it comes back to Ben. But right now, Wolfram has a rack that once again has some tiles that look bingo prone, but I don't believe that he has one that can play. Is Utopial valid?
Utopial is not. It looks like there are no bingos available from this rack.
Yeah.
And this is actually a pretty pivotal turn in terms of shaping the board. The past few turns have kind of all been these horizontal plays that have sort of stacked on top of each other to some extent. And so the top right quadrant of the board is starting to not be conducive for bingoing long-term at all. So basically, wherever Wolfram is going to play, it will determine which part of the board will be open for bingos and other scoring for the next few turns.
If I'm Wolfram here, I really like the play of LOU on top of age, making Lex and OD. It retains the P to back hook that if I need to on a board that otherwise doesn't have a lot of options. I am a little bit worried about getting overlapped. Lex is going to open up several front hooks, most notably iLex, but at the same time, you'd rather keep a fairly balanced leave. Something like IPAT does achieve that. You set yourself up for the hook as well. So I think LOU stands out as the best option here, but he may set down the P for an additional 6 points, although I don't think he should because of the hooks.
He's taking Lou, and it's going to give Ben a get out of jail free card.
Oh, absolutely. Wow, Ben has to be super happy about that. That's going to give him QI and iLex for a ton of points.
But it was a sound play from Wolfram, and he had to do that. I think. The Q coming back is just one of those things that you can't predict, and really, Lou is not an undefensive play, if I could use that probably not invalid description.
Wolfram's picked up a Z, and in the CSW lexicon especially, the Z is an incredibly powerful tile from what I've seen. In addition to ZA, which comes from NWL, there's also ZO and ZE for overlapping, and so the Z very often gets played for massive points in this dictionary. We'll see if Wolfram decides to sit on it. He does have the option to just play Zip right now for 36 points, making PAAL as well.
Oh,
Yeah,
great.
would you prefer that or would you prefer Blitz? Because the P is a pretty valuable tile now that you created the loop hook on this board.
The P is valuable, yes, but I don't know that it's that valuable. There's still many other ways to score. Bingo's coming down from Feist. The Silex hook that's just been opened up is pretty big as well. I'm inclined to just play Zip here for 36 and keep on going, but I could definitely see a case to be made for Blitz as well.
So this feels like, at this point, one other thing to notice is that the S, as Matt pointed out, so Silex is a word, and there's only one S lane for bingo, pluralizing Feist. So it could be when a player draws an S, they might actually decide that its most valuable place on the board, its most valuable utility, isn't for bingos ending in S's, but for making plays on the triple with Silex and something like an SH word or an SK word could be super high point.
So he's going with a ZIT and TAAL instead, which I presume is valid in TW or in CSW. Yeah, there it is. So that's interesting. Perhaps he's choosing to retain that P because he likes the synergy better with his remaining tiles, definitely for that loop hook as well. But sacrificing quite a few points to make that happen. We'll see if it pays off for him. Do want to point out as well that Wolfram is pretty low on time. We're only 4 turns into this game, and Wolfram's already used 10 of his 25 minutes. So that's going to be challenging for him to overcome going forwards on what's looking like it's going to be a tight, grindy sort of game right now.
Yeah, that's an interesting choice of Zit. I think Blitz would have been a little bit more defensive because the I would have come into that triple line. It would have taken away that E, it would have made the E much less easy to use for bonuses, and it scores well. So I might have preferred Blitz a little bit, but I'm curious what pros say about that.
I preferred Zip there, but the problem with both Zip and Zit is exactly what's about to happen right now, where Ben is going to be able to overlap that Z with anything he wants and play almost any word he wants. So in this case, because he's got such a vowel-heavy rack, he's electing probably to play OG here. But there are many. Yeah, OG is officially the play. He's at the clock now. It just gives back a lot, whereas Blitz, I feel like, is incredibly defensive, which if you're Wolfram, if you're holding on at P already, maybe that's what you want. In any case, Zit was the play, OG's the response, and Wolfram is sitting on an interesting rack that does actually have some bingos available to it. I believe Pupillage is good to that E, and Pupillar as well is going to play with Loop or next to Feist. So there's also, with a Q, he can play Applique. So many bingo options for Wolfram, and these are incredible Scrabble players. He'll definitely play a bingo here. It's more a matter of which one. Is he going to find one to that E? Pupillage and Applique, both 86 points, and would give Wolfram a pretty big lead, although Ben has just drawn bingos back. A nice America pull, Ben.
Yeah, very nice find, Matt. I feel like Benji is also someone who on stream sometimes puts up funny rack things. So he might put up America at some point, although this is being played so quickly, I think he'll just slap down his bingo fairly quickly.
He does choose applique, and that's a really beautiful find. Just to think, hey, I'll make the blanket Q. That takes a good anagramming instincts to think of that and do it. And this looks like it's getting a challenge.
Yeah, this is something we'll see a lot more in the CSW play, just because it is so cheap to challenge a word. It's only 5 extra points, and the benefit is you get a free turn, man. Your opponent scores 0, so why not throw an extra 5 points if you're even remotely unsure of a word? We've seen 4 phonies played in 11 rounds of TWL play or NWL play. I don't think we'll see any phonies played in the CSW lexicon across the 3 games we're covering this afternoon. So it is valid. We know that because we're on the stream. It's going to be 5 additional points for Wolfram. And I remember the blank game we played going into last round. Who would guess the blank is a Q? Apparently several people did. If the next one is a Z, I will eat my hat.
Yeah. Yeah, last game, people really wanted to see... I think Q blinks and Z blinks just also maximize the fun, and I feel like that's... Maybe it's not the best odds, but, you know, it's maximum fun. So if money is on the line...
Did you say fun? This is a Scrabble tournament. We're not supposed to be having fun. Just kidding. Of course we are.
Yeah, we as the commentators can. The players aren't. So and the people watching can have fun. But no, I'm just kidding. Some of the Scrabble players have fun. Others, if you're losing a lot, maybe it's not as fun.
So Ben still gets to make his next play. Again, this is a CSW Lexicon 5-point challenge, so Ben does still get to go again. I see immediately Supremia through that P is going to play as a bingo, in addition to some 7s that I think are going to fit next to... well, I'm not seeing 7s that actually hook Lou, L-O-U. Oh, maybe no, I'm not seeing it.
So Uremia, I think, is the one that fits there and puts the M on the triple letter score, but it slots an A right next to a triple word score. So even though it scores more than anything else, the counterplay is also a lot more.
Yeah, Supremia is the option that jumps out to me as the one that I like. There's also Permain. I don't know how to say that word either. Pearmain from either of the P's if he wants to play that. But there's no reason to expose that triple when Supremia scores very similarly and doesn't do the same thing.
So it's not a triple to be fair. It's just a triple lane. Another option, if he wants to play off of LOU, is he could play something like Madeira, Madeira, and open up 2 triple word scores. And the advantage of that is your opponent can take out one of them, but then you get another one back.
Yeah, it's definitely some things to be thinking about here, but I think Supremia is pretty standard. There is a massive overlap possibility next to it on the left side. You can see as he puts it down that blue triple letter square exposed, and so a 5-letter overlap could be devastating after that. But I do think of the options, that's probably the most reasonable one to be choosing, and that's exactly what Ben has done here.
It creates an interesting situation, though. How does Wolfram handle this now? Because he's got some duplicates that he's got to deal with. Obviously, wants to pick up some points, but I don't know if there's a really strong play available here. Feels like he's taking a challenge as well, and this, that'll even out the additional 5 points from applique. So, but I wonder, because he was looking at Myri on his rack, and now that. Doesn't really play anywhere beautifully. He can use the M to just dump IRY and maybe uncouple all of his duplicates. But do you folks see something better than that?
So I need to look at his tiles again since they were up for a second, then have been face down. So, but I think that seems like a reasonable play, though. I need to absorb the situation. EIIMRRY, I believe, was the rack. So one thing that jumped out to me, too, is maybe playing over next to Lou. You could play YIRR just to get rid of some of that. But I do think Sean's play of Myri as well, just from the M, is a good way to keep a very bingo-prone and dynamic leave while scoring about as much as you're going to be able to score. Oh, Myri and Yogi is another very good option. YOGEE is a front hook to that. So he could play over there as well, retain just EIR as his leave. Open the board up quite a bit, but this is a close game. You can't play Paranoid in a close game. So Myri and Yogi, I think, is the play we want to make.
The one thing about Myri off of Supremia is that it takes away that big E overlap that at least going down. And then it also slots the Y under the triple letter score where he'll already be holding an M. So, maybe that adds enough of an incentive to go that way.
It is a neat setup. Yeah, great point, Shauna. We'll definitely see what he chooses to make. I think you want to take the extra points and play up top here, that is a choice I would make in this scenario. But if you do want to keep that more dynamic bingo prone leave, you certainly could justify doing that, and I don't think people would fault you for it. And you address that hotspot as well next to Supremia.
Yeah, the more I look at Sean's placement of Myria, the more I like it. I just think it is a very intentional play and forces your opponent to create for themselves, whereas it gives you a place for your high point tile you're keeping and likely takes out a lot of the best options for your opponent. So it just seems like a very intentional play in the kind of way you'd want to do.
One thing that stands out to me, really bold out of this game, is I do feel like we're already starting to lean in the direction of a lot of consonants remaining in the bag. I think we only have 18 unseen vowels to Wolfram already at this juncture in the game. So that's Rhyme, I think, or Myri in that spot. I would play Myri there and put the M instead of the R, but I think in either one of those plays does hold EIR, which is generally a little bit more scary. But in this case, because you're drawn into so many consonants, it might be more balanced for you.
Yeah, the R does seem scary, but for Ben, it's just a good way to unload some vowels. So he takes that, and now he's looking like he could draw into a bingo in the following turn.
Yeah, Chad is definitely wondering if Rhyme over Myri was intentional or not. I'm certain good players see both of those words, and I bet he just wanted to put the R there to allow lower scoring comebacks on the triple word. So I'm wondering what that was or why that choice was made, but certainly not a mistake or an oversight necessarily, just a tactical decision he elected to make.
Yeah, and shout out, as we're seeing Benji's rack of wieners, shout out to Robin Polydaniel again from last round. If you remember her placement of that at the beginning was funny. So we'll see if that gets to come down again in the next turn or so.
I don't know if does it even play. The thing is that the option of playing Weens in the dangerous Supremia overlap is fair number of points on its own that keeps ER, but I'm not sure. I may be missing the bingos that play here because I'm just kind of scroll through here and
menswear.
Menswear. Oh, very nice. Okay, that would be that's definitely findable for Ben.
Yeah.
Yes.
And the other thing to keep in mind is Weens. I'm not sure what scores more, Weens or Swear and Silex. Both would be a bunch of points.
Oh, true. So lots of ways to score points. I imagine menswear is still quite a cut above the other two options. But that being said, it is a little bit of an unusual construction you need if you're thinking of, but I'm sure he'll look at the where and think of the where suffixes and see that one.
Oh my goodness. In TWL or NWL now, menswear does not take an S, but in Collins it does. And in 5 point, both players have to be very, very, very cautious about making that play. But it is such a good one that's going to create some... Oh, it's not going to create anything because it's going to get blocked. Ben can't be too happy about that. Wow. Applique does take the back D. And Wolfram is set down dry. I wouldn't be surprised if we see Ben throw 5 more points at this play, just out of, if anything else, out of frustration because menswear got blocked.
Yeah, wow. What a nice play by Wolfram. And I mean, this is kind of like Sid in round 1. Yeah, he is going to throw a challenge that way. Or Sid in round 3 that we saw, he took fewer points to block an area of the board and kind of minimize bingo potential. Rindy there off of the I in Rhyme was available for 40 points, and it would have only added an N to it. So normally taking the extra points and getting rid of an N is worth it, but in this example, I mean, dry comes down to perfectly block what you need to block.
That's incredible. Benji has to be a little frustrated, but the solace is he is still sitting on Wiener for, I believe, like 55 points or so next to Supremia. Wiener is also going to hold the S for the Silex spot. So even though Ben's bingo was blocked, he's still in good shape right now.
That's a good question. Is Wiener necessarily better than Weens because, there's a good chance that like none of the S's have been played except now this one. Oh, he's choosing Wiener, so never mind. But I just wonder about that R sitting where it is.
I'm taking that shot. I need to retain that S. I want to save it for Silex. It is very terrifying to make this play, especially after Wolfram's played dry. That to me tells him he's sitting on almost something exactly like what he is sitting on, the EINR type leaves. But it looks like it's going to work out for Ben here. He's not going to get tripled on.
That's right. And does Wolfram have anything that he can do that would really score big? I don't see, the kind of vowels that he might need to turn this rack into a bingo.
So the beautiful play is Denton, parallel to where Benji just played, to create a bunch of three-letter words like WED, EME, AIN, and MAT. That would be 37 points.
And I might see my name pluralized in the next turn.
Yeah, we might see some Seans.
Yeah.
Yeah, man, Denton is nice. I bet he fishes an N. I bet he plays QIN and NOD after a bunch of thinking and hopes he can pull something next to that, LOU hook with Lauer or Lout.
Yeah, that's fair. And it would block Benji's highest scoring play again.
Yes, it would. Ben might get a little bit tilted if his plays just continue getting blocked. But without seeing Denton, I think we're just going to see a short fish here. QIN would be, I think, the most rational one to make. But there are other options available, such as DIN through the R and Rhyme, just plunking 2 tiles there and holding EINRT. But yeah, Denton is a really tough word to spot with the 4 overlaps. And even if you do spot it, I don't know that it's a play people would prefer to make over just trying to keep the bingo prone leave.
Yeah.
This is interesting because if you assume that your opponent has some play through the R, it is like a really potent place on the board. There are other places in the board that are fairly potent right now, but I think that playing there is still pretty strong because R in the second position can go a lot of ways. Now, we know that J hasn't been played yet. There's a K that's sitting out there. So, some of these letters are the ones that are going to really determine, who's able to kind of spring out into a big lead as we start to see these. Because right now the game stays quite close, as Wolfram's play will probably bring within 30 points or so.
There are only 12 unseen vowels in the entire pool currently. 1 A, 3 E's, 2 I's, 5 O's, and a U. So for Wolfram, maybe playing off the additional tiles here, or the additional consonants here, is a good idea, just because this game could start to get pretty weird for him, and for both players, as we draw a lot of the remaining consonants.
Yeah, that was interesting, his choice there. I mean, the T seems so great with R in second position on the triple, but I understand wanting to play off more consonants there too.
So it looks like, interestingly, Benji is passing up on all of the opportunities with Silex, even though he's holding on to 2 S's right now. He's going to play Noah, and he's going to set down the additional S as well. Telegraphing, I have at least one more, Wolfram. What are you going to do about it? And if I'm Wolfram, I'm looking at Silex now, and I'm like, dang, I really want to make that spot go away. Wolfram is doing something that drives me nuts in Scrabble too. I think he's got a reason for doing it, but players get so attached to 2 vowels and 2 consonants, EINR, EINT, and those leaves are a lot more unstable than people make them out to be in their heads, because if you do draw 2 vowels, a lot of the time you're not going to bingo, and you're going to score 12. And especially in a lexicon like Collins, where points are flowing off both players' racks all game, you can't get caught up with a rack like what Wolfram has right now. You can't score anything, and your opponent is going to be scoring a lot of points every turn. So I understand why he did it in this particular context. I think he was trying to retain more vowels and play more consonants because of the unevenness of the pool. But that's a classic beginner mistake mistake I see time and time again, where players do get too attached to two vowels and two consonants, things like EINR, when you don't want to do that.
Yeah. So one thing to monitor here is Wolfram didn't pick up quite the tiles he wanted. He drew another I and another N. And one option, Oni, O-N-I-E, off of the Y, creating Yo, that would give Benji a bingo back of socket. So it will be interesting to see what Wolfram does here. He could definitely... that isn't like a guaranteed play at all. I mean, he could maybe even do something off of LOU, as it takes an N and an R, so he could play Inyan or Iron. But it definitely is possible that Benji could have a bingo all of a sudden, kind of out of nowhere.
Based on just the fact that Wolfram went out of his way a little bit to keep the R and E leave, I don't feel as though he's necessarily slot the E out of the open now. But I think it's true that one way or the other, Ben is looking really smart for his play of Noah's, because he took a very defensive approach on one corner, and meanwhile he's still going to get to score big in the other.
Ben is fast playing Wolfram aggressively for everybody watching at home. Stock is coming down immediately, and Wolfram is down under 5 minutes already in a game that's looking like it could be very close. So something definitely to watch. Wolfram's probably he's going to have to start scrambling and getting it together. I will remind those at home who are less familiar with tournament Scrabble, going overtime is not an instant forfeit as it is in games like chess, but instead you start bleeding points. You lose 10 points for every minute or fraction of a minute that you go over. So a player who finishes a game 1 minute and 1 second overtime would lose 20 points. And it is capped. You can only go 10 minutes overtime before you do take a 200-point forfeit loss.
And unfortunately, the board is not getting more favorable for Wolfram. And even though he's sitting on a nice 7, it doesn't look as though he'll be able to play a bingo now.
Yeah, it's tough. This is a danger too of getting kind of fish heavy and fish oriented. And Ben has done a good job too of locking down this board and making the bingo lines go away. Stock blocked the LOU spot almost entirely, and Noah's, with the addition of that S, blocked the triple opportunities. So maybe Ben did a good job of honing in on kind of fishy type plays from Wolfram and blocked those lines accordingly.
I mean, it's tough here. It's also, if you look, the top triangle of the board has basically been used, and the bottom triangle of the board has basically been unused. And so it creates some potential, I guess, for Wolfram to open some things up, but it also means in the short term, it's going to be harder and harder to bingo immediately.
This is so tough for Wolfram. All of a sudden, his this close game is evaporated for him, and this is what I mean, especially in CSW and especially against the top players in the world who score. You can't get caught up having to score small little plays like DINT. You need to get rid of those 1-point tiles a little more aggressively. The bingos will come. There's 70 or 80,000 of them to draw into. It's just so dangerous to watch a lead evaporate so instantly against such great players like Ben.
Yeah, it's a tough turn right here. Looks like he's considering EN, which is kind of understandable. It's a kind of desperate fishing play, and it doesn't score much, which will allow Ben to kind of extend a lead to the point where by the time Wolfram bingos, if he does, that it won't even be enough to make up the difference, and that's the tough problem that Wolfram faces. I almost wanted to consider Scent in the top corner just to at least score a little bit more. This option is kind of like that let's just try to break it wide open and do something with this bottom quadrant. But it's quite likely that it'll help Ben more, and he can probably play to the triple in the triple center in the bottom, or he can overlap or hook this play in a number of ways.
Yeah, Ben's got troves or other options down there, but he's shown he'd like to keep this board closed if at all possible. So I'm interested to see how Ben will do this. Wolfram is sitting on Silenter from the S and Noah's. I don't see any other available bingos for him, but he does have at least that option. I don't think it's going to get blocked by Ben, but I also think such a low-scoring bingo that gives back so many scoring opportunities is one that Ben would be happy to concede at this point.
Yeah, I'd like to see Troves played, but I agree with you that it looks like Ben's philosophy is to try to be a little more defensive. The only caveat is that if you play defensive and your opponent bingos anyway, that might be the window of opportunity they need to have some chance to come kind of close this gap. And now for Wolfram, he'll get to put a Silenter down. If he sees that, he is under some time pressure.
Oh my goodness, he's whiffed it. And this is why he's under time pressure. It's hard to look from that S, but you can see really quickly he's trying to make his plays stay above time, and he whiffs the bingo there. A very high prob miss, very uncharacteristic for a player of Wolfram's caliber as well, but that time trouble really hurts.
Unfortunate, but yeah, the pressure of everything and also, kind of that desperation to bingo gets to the point where, even when the bingo comes, you're not really expecting it because you thought, okay, well, he took away that spot where I opened it up. And it's something that, unfortunately, if it doesn't jump out at you, he wasn't feeling in a situation where he had enough time to just take a good look all around the board. And that's what happened. So it seems as though the gap is widening, and Ben is likely to score well again, and probably do it in a once again perhaps some a moderately defensive fashion. So we'll see.
Yeah, great point by chat that Ben now is one tile off Schwitz's. Unfortunately, the Z is not out in space.
Yeah, this game is done, though. All Ben has to do is play something like Vises into ELS. He'll score so much that any bingo Wolfram does make in response to it is going to be far too little and far too late. So I think, great game by Ben. Really good job of fast playing a player who had shown him he's going to be playing this game very slowly. And Ben capitalized on it well to force some mistakes out of Wolfram.
Yeah, Ben just continues to score here, close off the K bingo lane a bit, which would be, I guess, the one way Wolfram could potentially hit some crazy low probability bingo that just scores a ton. So it makes a ton of sense from Benji's perspective, but it leaves Wolfram with basically no ways to win at this point.
Yeah, there are very few tiles left in the bag, and there's no way with that unseen pool that Wolfram's going to be able to bingo and bango again on the next turn to win this game. That is garbage. B, D, E, F, G, J, N, O, S, S, T, U, V, W. This game is over, and it's going to go in Benji's favor.
Yeah, well, I mean, even he definitely can't bingo bango just because there are only 6 tiles in the bag, so he literally can't draw 7 tiles for a bingo.
That is a fantastic point as well, Morris. Thank you.
Yeah, that is one thing that I think a lot of people miss in analysis towards the end of a game. If you're up by 2 bingos, it's often really strong to make a play such that there are only 6 tiles in the bag. Because at that point, so you could sacrifice like 30 points, but you're guaranteed for no double bingo opportunities.
And I think many people at home have had the same kind of frustrating game we've watched Wolfram play, where you get caught up in these 1-point letters. You have a board where you think you can get bingos down, and you miss, and all of a sudden you're down 100 points without your opponent really doing anything much in response, and you're just like, wait, what? What happened? This is a play that I think is very weak, but I mean, he has to try to score 100. Maybe Ben has no vowels left, and I think that's kind of what Wolfram is fishing for here. But again, far too little, far too late, and Benji's going to be able to smash that spot with jests for about 1,000,000 points.
Well, That's excellent math there, Matt. But I think one of the things that I'm struck by is that Wolfram played for most of the game pretty sound plays. Like they may not, there was some debate with this player that plays it versus Blitz, or Myri versus Raimi, or some of these options. But they were all pretty sound plays. But then once the time pressure started to really compound on him, and Ben started to really control the shape of the board in a deep way, I think just kind of pushed Wolfram in a corner where those little mistakes went and looked larger, and the game was just sort of out of reach for him.
Absolutely. No, that's a great point as well. Yeah, solid game until the time trouble caught in. I totally agree with you there. And I do just want to give additional kudos to Ben for capitalizing on this and being able to play this game very, very quickly. I think he made a couple plays that may have been slightly suboptimal, but just because he was able to play them so fast, they ended up being better in this board against this opponent.
It's one of those things where the player who just seems to have that upper hand with the tiles, and often is the maybe the higher rated player. Sometimes that's a factor, but they do have that ability to keep the other player just chasing the game, and that's kind of what Wolfram was trying to do. Was trying to find. He was close for a long time. He was like, oh yeah, it's my turn, and I can kind of get within another 20 points, within 30 points, and or at that point. For the first half, it could have been anyone's game, and it just has gone this way. But there were definitely some strong plays, and all from both players. And I think Applique was in a really nice bingo, and the choice to respond to that with Supremia was nice, and then the overlap of Noah was great. So we saw some really good choices by both players that made this game interesting.
Absolutely, and it's one that felt back and forwards until just a few turns ago, and all of a sudden, when you assess the time penalty as well, it's almost a 200-point landslide in Benji's favor. So, Scrabble can be a game like that sometimes, and that's exactly what we saw here. The next game we're going to bring to you is one we're super excited. It is a matchup of David Eldar, who's a world champion, versus Alex Seaholm, who won the last U.S. or North American Scrabble Championship, but he played that one in the NWL Lexicon, and this is his first big tournament in the CSW Lexicon. So that one is going to be absolute fireworks. I expect to see a clinic of fantastic play from these players, and we can't wait to bring that to y'all in just a few minutes. We are going to step away and take a short break as the players take their break in between rounds. But again, I'm Matt Kanik, joined by Morris Greenberg and Sean Abbasi, presenting the 2022 Scrabble Players Championship from Baltimore, Maryland. We'll be back in just a few minutes. Stay with us, y'all.